Hello, everyone! My name is Light, and welcome to the lab. Let's take a moment to say hi to the class. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing today? Now, I know it's been a little while since I've been back here, and I do apologize for that. I've been real busy in my real life, but I promise we are back and on track. All right. What do you have to say today, Charles?
Welcome back, Professor. Hope everything is all right. Looking forward to making something fun today. You want an apple?
You know what, Charles? I think I will take an apple. Thank you so much, Charles. You are awesome. Absolutely awesome. Hello, Simon. How are you today? Hey, Teach. Those kelp blocks are amazing fuel. My furnace is still running. What are we up to today? And it's good to have you back. Well, you know what, Simon? It is great to be back. Thank you very much, and I will let you know the project in just a moment. Hey, Johnny, how are you doing today? What do you have to say, my son? All right, all right, all right. Best speech as usual, Johnny. Love you, man. Love you. All right, gentlemen. Well, for today's build, I have a saying for you. Have you ever heard everything that glitters isn't always gold? Well, today we're going to throw that right out the window because we are going to build a 4-portal ticking gold farm. So if you love your piglins and you have a big trade set up in the nether with all those guys, this farm is what you need to fuel those trades. All right, so that being said, give me a moment. I'm going to get over to the build site and we'll get on the go. See you guys in a moment. Hey everyone, we are over here at the build site. Now before we get into the dimensions and materials, I would like to discuss some safety precautions that you'll have to take when doing this build. It will get very high in the air, approximately 48 to 50 blocks. So that being said, if you were to fall from some of these heights, the fall damage will kill you if you are not prepared. So that being said, I would recommend having a pair of boots with at least feather falling 4, and if you don't have that, I would recommend having some potions of slow falling. Make sure of course that they are 8 minutes long, so they will last you as long as possible. Alright, now the other thing that you'll need to consider is in regards to the materials. For our build, I'm going to be using glass to build the water tank and the drop chute that leads down to the Trident Killer. However, as you can see, that is going to take a ton of glass. So if you're in a world where you don't have, your sand access isn't that great or you have to go really far to get some, you may want to consider possibly using some stone for the tank and the chute, and maybe even mix in some glass so you can see what's going on. However, for the purposes of this build, I'm going to be using glass so you can see everything that happens once we start the build. Alright folks, let's get into the dimensions and the materials. The area that you will need for this build is 32 by 32, so that is 4 chunks. So if you have, a texture pack that shows you your chunk borders, you could definitely go ahead and chunk align the build. Again, that is 32 by 32. Alright, now as for materials, I'm going to warn you guys, we are going to need a lot, but I promise you it's worth it if you love to trade with piglins. So that being said, we will need 8 dispensers, 8 observers, 2 stacks of redstone dust, 32 repeaters, 32 pistons, 10 levers, 64 redstone torches, a stack of slabs, a stack of building blocks, they could be any building blocks you like, 4 buckets of water. You can also use 2 of these buckets of water to create an infinite water source to help you fill the water tank. Now as for lighting your portals, it really depends on the options in your world. If you play on a world with fire spread on, you are free to use buckets of lava to light your portals. Otherwise, if you're on a world with fire spread off, you can use either flint and steels or fire charges. Up to you. Now, we're also going to need a ton of glass. However, like I said in the considerations, if you're on a world where your access to sand isn't that great or it's extremely far away, you may want to consider having some stone on hand and doing a mixture between the stone and the glass. Completely up to you. We will also need at least 12 tridents. You could use up to 24, but you will need minimum 12. We'll also need 6 stacks of obsidian. Now, I'm sure you're wondering where you might get this much obsidian, and to that, I say go to the end, and if you've already defeated the dragon, you'll be able to mine the pillars and get all the obsidian you will ever need. You'll also need 24 hoppers, and finally, 24 fence gates. Like I said, folks, it is a lot, but I promise you it's worth it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I'll get this stuff in my inventory, and we'll get started. I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, folks, I have what we need to begin. The first step is going to be building the holding tank for the zombie piglins. Now, the size of the tank is going to be 30 by 30. So since we know the inside of this area is 32 by 32, that means we're going to have a 1 block wide strip going all the way around. So to help us lay out our corners for the tank, you can come to one of the corners, count in by 2 blocks, and then up by 1. When you get to here, put in one of your building blocks. All right, so go ahead, do that at every corner. All right, so again, as another demonstration, when you get to the corner, count in by 2, so 1, 2, and then up by 1. There we go. With all the corner markers laid out, we can now start building the pillars to the height that we need. So, each of these towers will need to be 21 blocks tall, with block number 21 being a piece of glass, since that will be the start of the floor. Now, when you get to the last pillar, only build that one 20 blocks tall. And that is where we will meet up again. So just to demonstrate, we want to go up first of all by 20 blocks. So I already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 being a piece of glass. So go ahead and do that on the other 2 corners. But again, when you get to your last one, stop at block 20 and I'll meet you there. Alright folks, once all the pillars are in place, it should look like this. So I am here on our pillar that we've built up by only 20 blocks. Now the reason that we've done this one only 20 is because we do need to lay out some additional building blocks, which will help us with another piece of the floor later on in the build. So going either this way or that way, it really doesn't matter. We need to build out by an additional 7 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Once you do that, you can turn to the left or right, whichever way goes in for you, depending on the corner that you're at. And we're going to build in by another 7 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Perfect. Right? Once you have those in place, go on back over here to the corner where we have our pillar that is only 20 blocks. And you can now go ahead and put in block number 21, which again is a piece of glass. Perfect. Now the next step will be to connect up all the pieces of glass on top of our pillars, forming a giant square. So go ahead and get that done, and I'll meet you back here. All right, once we have everything connected, it should look like this. Now the next step is we're going to add in some guidelines to help us finish building the first piece of the floor. So from the corner that you're at, going either this way or this way, we need to count in by 7 blocks. So this block being number 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Once you get here, turn to either the left or right, whichever way goes inside, and we're going to build out by 7 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Perfect. Now, we're going to be building these guidelines all the way around. So, to do that, you're going to go to the next rail in the square. So starting at the corner, again, count in by 7 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Turn to the left or right, whichever way goes in. Build out by an additional 7 blocks. Perfect. When you have your second line in, it should look like this. So go ahead, put in the other 2 lines, and I'll meet you back over here where we put in the first one. When all the guidelines are in place, everything should look like this. Now the next step will be to create an inner square. So we're going to connect all the guidelines together. So this one to this one to that one to this one, and then back to here, all the way around. So go ahead, create that square, and I'll meet you back here. When all the guidelines are connected, our inner square should look like this. Now you'll notice here we have all these empty spaces all the way around. So that being said, our next step in the process is to fill in all the empty spaces except for this big square in the middle. We're going to leave that empty because we're going to do something else in there. So go ahead, fill all these in, and I'll meet you back here. When all those areas are filled in, everything should look like this. So far, so good. All right. So the next step in the process will be to add the walls all the way around the floor. Now this is going to be nice and easy. The one thing to remember is they need to be 5 blocks tall. So again, go ahead, add your 5 block tall wall all the way around, and I'll meet you back here when you're done. When all the walls are in place, everything should look like this. All right. So the next piece we're going to do is add in the last bit of the floor, and that's actually where this block is going to come into play. But before we start adding some blocks in down there, we first need to mark out the center points for the drop chute. So the drop chute that we're going to use is going to be 12 blocks this way, and it's going to be 2 blocks this way. So I already know that this space going across here is 14 blocks. So that means that we're going to have 1 block on each side. So if you want, grab your building blocks and you can put some markers in like this. Right, so go ahead and do that on the opposite side. And again, come in by 1 block. Now on the sides with no markers, knowing that these are 14, we're going to want to come to block 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put a block here, and we also want to put a block here on block 8. And again, do the same thing on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. Perfect. So that is everything marked out. Now at this point, we can start laying in our row of glass on the bottom. So to put your first piece in, you might want to come over to this side, look at the side of your building block, and put it in just like that. Now for the other pieces, you should be able to come over to this side, stick out like this, and catch the corner so you can go all the way across. So go ahead, lay out this line, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so once we get that line laid in, it should look like this. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start building this across this way. However, when we get to these 2 blocks in every row, rather than glass, make sure that you put in some building blocks because we're going to be removing those later. Okay, so this first row going all the way across is just going to be glass. So you can go ahead and you can fill that one right in. Again, same thing on the other side. Perfect. With those 2 in place, should look like that. And now we can go ahead and start laying in the rest of our lines. So the way that we're going to do this is you can put a couple down to start the line. Hop down in, and then essentially we're going to build across until we get to those marker blocks. Right. And once we get to the marker blocks, grab your building blocks, put in 2 like that. Again, grab your glass, keep building across. So go ahead and do that, filling out the rest of this square, and I'll meet you on the other side when everything is done. When the rest of the bottom section of the floor is filled in, it should look like this. So I'll take some time just to kind of spin around so you guys can have a look. Make sure you have your dimensions correct. These 2 should be right in the very center of this inner floor. Now at this point, go ahead and grab your fence gates. This is where we're going to need them. We're going to put 1 on top of all of these building blocks. So go ahead and right across, put them in just like this. Okay, so what these fence gates are going to do, they're going to prevent the water from going down the hole, but they're still going to allow the mobs to pass right through. So go ahead, open up the fence gates. Okay, when you have that done, if you want, you can go ahead and break those temporary blocks. All right, so when that step is done, everything should look like this. Now at this point, you can go ahead and get rid of these temporary marker blocks. We no longer require those. And if you do happen to break a piece of glass, just make sure you replace it as you go. All right, perfect. So at this point, the tank itself, minus the water, is actually done. Perfect. All right, the next step is to add the marker blocks for the portals. Now, these marker blocks are going to be 3 blocks high, the first 2 being regular building blocks, and block number 3 being the first piece of obsidian in the portal itself. So, in order to help us put these in, there's an easy way we can do this. Come to any of the corners of your tank. From the corner, count over either left or, either this way or that way. Count over by 4 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we get here, we want to go up by 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, put your marker blocks there, kind of like that. Come back to the corner. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite way. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so when they're in place, should look like that. Okay, so I'll do that one more time in this corner. And then after that, you guys can go ahead, finish off the other 2, and I'll meet you back over there. All right, so starting from the corner, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. From the 4th block, go up 3. 1, 2, 3. Like that. Come back to the corner. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Okay, perfect. So go ahead, add in the other 2. Once all the marker blocks are in place, everything should look like this. All right, so the next step, go ahead, get up on top of one of your marker blocks. The next thing we're going to do is connect up all the obsidian lines. So kind of like we did here for the inner floor, we're going to go this piece over to that piece over to that piece, and so on all the way around. So go ahead, connect up your obsidian, and I'll meet you back here. When all your obsidian lines are connected up, everything should look like this. Each corner should have this little gap. Now the next step in the process will be to build the pillars for each of the portals. Now I would recommend definitely doing these 2 at a time, and then once you get the last couple done, you can then go across the top to make all your connections. Now the height of these pillars is going to be 22 blocks. So starting with this one here, we need to go up an additional 21 blocks. An easy way to figure that out would be to use your Y chord. So right now I'm at Y level 28. If I need to go up an additional 21 blocks, I'm going to end up at Y level 49. And again, I would recommend doing these 2 at a time all the way up. It'll make your job easier, rather than having to build one, go back down, come all the way back up with another. You might as well just do them 2 at a time. So again, I said that was Y level 49 that we were going to. Perfect. So here we are at Y level 49. Now you're going to go ahead and repeat this process in every corner. And as I was saying earlier, this is where either your feather falling 4 boots or your slow falling potions are going to come in handy, so you can drop down without a threat of dying. So go ahead, build up all the rest of your pillars, and I'll meet you back on top. When all the pillars are in place, everything should look like this. Now the next step will be to connect the tops of all the portals. So same as we did on the bottom, this one to this one, that one to that one, and so on. So go ahead, make those connections, and I'll see you when you're done. Once all the connections have been made, all the portals should look like this. Perfect. Now at this point, we can actually go ahead and test the portals. So go ahead and jump back down. Make sure you have one of your flint and steels on hand. And if you're in survival, of course, you should be able to jump up and just give the portal a flick. Like that. Perfect. And as you notice, the moment we lit it, we instantly got a zombie pigman. So can you imagine these ticking on, off? How many pigmen are going to come from them? Woohoo! All right, so now that we know that the portals work, you can actually go ahead, break one of your obsidian to turn the portal off. Go ahead and replace that when you're done. Now, if any zombie pigman did happen to spawn, you may want to go ahead and kill that guy just to get him out of your way, but they're pretty passive unless you end up touching them. So if you want to keep them around, all right, cool. And now that we have our portals in place, you can go ahead as well and get rid of the marker blocks. They are no longer required. Now the next step will be to build all the clocks that we need on the corner of each portal, which will make them tick on and off. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll finish breaking these, I'll gather the supplies, and I'll meet you guys over in one of the corners. All right, so starting from the corners of one of your portals, this is actually where we're going to build the clocks, which will make the portals themselves tick on and off. We're going to build one in each corner, going all the way around. All right, so now to start us off, we are going to need to remove and possibly replace some of the glass back here. Now we only need to do the top two, going over by 6. Like that. Next, grab your slabs. We're going to want one slab right here, like that. Come on back over to the other side. We'll also need a slab right here. Make sure you're looking at the last spot in the open. So right there, like that. We'll also need a row of slabs against this glass. Like that. Perfect. Now on these 2 slabs here will go our dispensers. So put one there like that. Make sure the face is pointing toward the portal, just like that. In these dispensers, this one here is actually going to be the flint and steel, and this one here is going to be the bucket of water. Now the buckets of water we're going to hang on to because we're going to need those for filling in the pool. So those will probably be the last things that we add to the clocks. Just keep that in mind. Once you have the dispensers in place, grab your building blocks. We're going to need one right there behind the dispenser for the flint and steel. Coming off of this block on this face, we want a redstone torch, like that. Now you can go ahead and you can grab your levers. We're going to put a lever. This is just a temporary lever. So we're going to go ahead, put it on this side of the block, like that, and give it a flick, just so it depowers the torch. Like that. Perfect. Now coming out of this torch, we're going to want a repeater. So that's going to go right there. Leave that on 1 tick. Then we're going to want some redstone dust coming up like that. On this side, we're going to want 3 repeaters going into this block. So 1, 2, 3. You can leave all of those on 1 tick. We'll need a piece of redstone dust here, so that connects up like that. Our observer is going to go right here. So in order to help you place it, you can kind of crouch, come back a little bit like that, point at the corner, put it in just like that. The arrow should be pointing towards the dispenser. That's how you know you got it right. Perfect. Now on top of the dispenser, we're going to need a building block. This is just temporary to allow us to place our piston. And in order to help us place our piston, we're going to need to put a building block 1 block lower on our wall so we can get down low enough. So go ahead, put in a building block, kind of like that, and then put in one right here to help you get back up. At this point, grab your piston, look up at the temporary block like that, place it in so the head of the piston is pointing down, just like that. Okay. Once you have that in, you can break these 2 blocks, and break this block as well. Now grab your redstone dust. We're going to need a piece on top of the observer, and that will power the piston. All right, so at this point, we should have everything all set up. If you go ahead and flick the switch, we should see the clock start. Yep, exactly like that. Perfect. Now, if we want to know it's working properly, go ahead, throw a flint and steel in this dispenser, put a bucket of water in this dispenser. Once you have those in, again, give the lever a flick to start the clock. And as we can see, portal on, portal off, portal on, portal off. Perfect. Now, once you know it works, you can go ahead and flick the switch to turn it off. So grab your bucket of water, because you will need that to fill up the pool. Now, during the test, you might have spawned in a few zombie pigmen. So again, if you're cool with them being here, that's great. If not, pull out your sword and have fun. All right, so now that you see how the clock is done, I'm just going to go over here so you can have a good look at it. Again, dispenser here, dispenser here. All the repeaters are on one tick. We have a torch here with a temporary lever on the other side to depower the torch, to turn off the clock. And then as well, the observer here pointing into this dispenser to power that. Perfect. Now, the way that the observer activates is actually the piston. So when the piston activates and the head goes down, the observer sees that, and that's what activates the water. Perfect. So go ahead and build up the rest of your clocks, one in each corner. Now, I would recommend, of course, doing them opposite. So for this one, we did it on this side, meaning our next one is going to be here, and then again, it would be there, and then there, going all the way around. So again, go ahead, build up the rest of your clocks. I'll meet you back over there. Once you have all your clocks built, everything should look like this. As you can see, we have one in the opposite corner going all the way around. Now, you might be asking about the glass down here, and that's actually what we're going to address next. So if you do have some glass left over, you can go ahead and you can replace this top row of glass going all the way across, right over to the piston, just like that. And as well, I would put a couple slabs on top of each dispenser just to ensure nothing hops up on there or gets stuck. So go ahead, do that in every one of your clocks, and I'll meet you back down on the spawning floor. Alright, so after we have all the backs corrected on all the clocks going all the way around, rather than hopping down to the spawn floor, we should take some time to put in our flint and steels. So the amount of flint and steels that you use, of course, will depend on your personal iron supply, but as we know, each dispenser can hold up to 9 flint and steels. But you're going to have at least 4 minimum. So go ahead and put a flint and steel, or as many as you got in the dispensers going all the way around. Keeping in mind that this dispenser here is for the flint and steel, and this one over here is for the water. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you down on the spawning floor. Now that we have all our flint and steels in place, the next step is to start putting in the water for the tank. Now, in order to help us out, we are going to build an infinite water source. So to do that, go ahead and build up a structure or a square that kind of looks like this. Grab your bucket of water, you're going to want one here, and that creates your infinite water source. Now, the way we're going to put the water in is we're going to go all the way across on this side. So the sides that have, the fence gates open, we want to go all the way across on both of these sides. And then on these two sides, we're only going to put water from this block over to that block. And that's going to set it up so that everything just gets pushed right into the middle. Okay, so go ahead and start placing your water. Once we have that in place, everything should flow in and look like this. So far, so good. Next, go ahead and put water along these blocks here. Just like that. And as we can see, everything connects and gets all funneled down here, right in, just like this. Perfect. Okay, so go ahead and do the same thing on this side. Just like that. Perfect. Once we have all the water in and everything looks good, all the flow looks correct, go ahead and break your infinite water source. We no longer require that. Perfect. So I'm going to go up in the air here just to give you a better look at that so you can see what that looks like. All the water flows in, meets here, and then pushes everything right into the middle, just like that. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So with the water, we're actually pretty much done up here. And now that we have the water in, the final step is to go around to all your dispensers and put in your buckets of water. So go ahead, put in your 4 buckets of water, and then I'm going to meet you guys back down on the ground for the next part. All right, folks, now that we're back on the ground, the next thing that we can do is add in some marker blocks for our redstone torch power towers that have to run up to each of the clocks. So in order to do that, you can actually use these pillars to help you out. So if we look up here, we need to go over by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, and that is where the tower is going to be. But rather than putting it in line with the pillar, we're going to put our marker block right here. We're actually going to run the towers up in front of the glass. So again, we'll go ahead, we'll go over to the next clock, we'll repeat the same process. So starting here, if we look up, we can go over 1, 2, 3, 4, there's number 5. And again, put our marker block right here. So go ahead, put in your other 2 marker blocks, I'll meet you back over there. When all the marker blocks are in place, everything should look like this. Perfect. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start laying in the hoppers and the pistons for the Trident Killer. In order to help us line those properly, we can actually use the build to our advantage. So looking up at the build, you're going to want to find the first line of glass that leads to an opening. So for me, that would be this one here. Once you get that, you're going to want to come to your perimeter, come in by 2 blocks. And then starting from this block, being block number 1, we're going to want to count in by 14 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this being block 14 right here, meaning this is block 15, and this will actually be the first opening in the chute. So we can go ahead, we can take this block out here, meaning this block would be the next. We can take that one out as well. In here, we're going to put a couple hoppers. Make sure the hoppers point down. So make sure you're looking straight down at the block when you place it. Perfect. Now for the purposes of this build, I'm not going to be doing a full storage solution. I find storage to be a personal thing and everyone kind of likes to do it their own way. So I'm going to be having the hoppers here to make sure you know the items get collected so they don't build up too much. But however you want to sort them and store them after that, I'll leave up to you guys. Perfect. Now once we have these 2 hoppers in place, go ahead, take a look up at the build. We're going to want to put in an additional 11 hoppers in each row going this way. So starting here, we're going to add another 11 hoppers in each row. So go ahead and do that. I'll meet you on the other side. When all the hoppers are in place, everything should look like this, meaning that we have 12 in each row. Perfect. So next, go ahead and grab your pistons. We're going to want a piston in front of every hopper, ensuring that the piston head points in towards the hopper. So go ahead and put in a row of pistons like this. Once you have that side in, jump up on the row of pistons and put the same thing in on the other side. So in total, this will be 24 pistons. I believe in the materials I mentioned that we may only need 16, and I do apologize, that number should have been 32. You will need 32 pistons. However, if you decide to make your Trident Killer a little smaller, you could make a smaller number of pistons work. Up to you. Once you have all the pistons in place, go ahead and grab your glass. We're going to put a piece here, piece here. Do the same thing on the other side. So again, piece here, piece here. Once those 2 glasses or 2 pieces of glass are in place, we're going to go ahead, we're going to connect everything up to the floor above. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here when you're done. When the chute is done, it should look like this. And as you can see, our glass goes from the bottom all the way to the top, connecting everything up. Perfect. Now, if you're building this, I'm going to assume at this point you probably have Silk Touch. The reason I mention this is because we are going to have to take out a few pieces of this glass for later parts of the build. So specifically, take out these two here, and as well, we're going to be taking out the first row on top of the pistons, and we're going to be replacing those with slabs. The reason that we're replacing them with slabs is this will give us a really big area so we can go around and collect all the XP. This farm will produce a lot of XP, and if you let it build up, it will lag out your world or server or realm, depending on what you're playing on. So make sure that you have a good system set up that will allow you to collect the XP as the mobs are getting killed. So I would recommend putting the slabs on top of the glass, like this. Just like that. Perfect. Now, if you want to be a little more stylish, you could actually even put in a couple building blocks right here, just like that. And then, of course, maybe put a slab on top so nothing spawns. Okay, so again, put in your row of slabs going across the glass. Like that. Grab your building blocks. 1, 2, and then a slab, like that. Perfect. And finally, we'll add in our last one over here, like that. Excellent. So now this will give us an area where we can essentially just run back and forth like this and collect all the XP as the mobs are getting killed. Excellent. Now the next thing I would suggest is a bit of a decorative touch, but it's to go around and replace all the blocks in front of your pistons and all the way around with some of your building blocks. In my case, I'm using smooth stone. I just find this makes the build look just a little bit better. So go ahead, replace all those, and I'll meet you guys on the other side. Now that we have the perimeter in place, we can build the redstone clock, which is going to power the pistons. Now the redstone clock we're going to use is a fairly standard design that you've probably seen many times over the course of the years, but we'll go through it again. So in order to build it, we need to first make our familiar T-shape. So block here, block like that, block like that. Then we break the block in the middle, so we end up with this shape. Next, grab a repeater. We're going to want to put it in so it's pointing like that. You can leave the repeater on 1 tick. On the face of this block here, we're going to want a redstone torch like that. On the face of this block here, we're going to need a lever like that. And then right here, we need a piece of redstone dust. Now the moment I put this redstone dust down, the clock will activate. Just like that. So in order to turn the clock off, just give the lever a flick. Perfect. All right, so from here, we can go ahead and we can add in all the redstone dust, which is going to power the pistons. Okay, so there's that side, just like that. And then go ahead and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, now we notice here that the last 2 pistons didn't get powered, meaning that we're going to have to use a repeater on this side to make sure that we have enough power. All right, so the way that I would do this is take out those 2 pieces of redstone, put a repeater right here like that, then connect the line just like that. And again, you can leave this repeater on 1 tick. So now, if we go ahead and we flick the lever, we should see the pistons going back and forth, just like that. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So that is perfect. Once you've verified your pistons, go ahead and turn off the lever. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, folks. Now the next step in this is going to be laying out the power lines that are going to connect all the clocks together. So that way, if all goes well, we're only going to have this one switch to turn on when we want to run the farm. So allow me a moment. I'm going to gather the supplies for that, and I'll meet you over there at that block. All right, folks. In order to start laying in our torch towers, we first need to come to one of the marker blocks that we laid earlier, come in behind the block like this, and put another building block right there, just like that. Once you have this block here, go ahead, destroy the marker block, Where that block was, we're going to put a redstone torch like that. Perfect. Now this is going to be the foundation for our torch tower. At this time, we can also add a temporary lever here like this. And that'll be to power the tower either on or off. Now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and we can start building the tower up. Now for my purposes here, I'm going to be taking advantage of creative and using the flying ability. However, just know if you were doing this in survival, you would be pillaring up all the way. So as we go up, it's torch, block, torch, block, torch, block. So as long as you keep that pattern going, you should have no issues going up at all. Perfect. So far, so good. All right. Now, once we get to this point, we're going to want another block here, but we're also going to need to break a couple pieces of glass so we can put in another torch. So I would suggest breaking these two right here. So make sure you have a little bit of glass on hand so you can replace them. And we'll also need to break this one right here. Now this one here we're not going to replace because that's actually where we're going to put the torch. Like that. Once you have that torch in, go ahead and replace these two pieces of glass. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Now if we take a look, we can see that the current status, this torch up here is powered. However, it's not powering this block because this switch is already doing so. So if I go ahead and I break the lever, we'll see that the clock does not start because we're in the exact same state. Perfect. All right, so now that you've seen me do this on one side, go ahead and do it for all four. When everything is said and done, I'll meet you back here. When all your torch towers are in place, everything should look like this. We should have 4 towers going around. Right, now that we're at this point, we no longer need these temporary pillars. So the next step will be to go ahead, take down all the temporary pillars, and as well as the temporary blocks we used to help us place in the floor. Once we have that done, we'll come back, and then we'll run the power lines for the torch towers. So I'll see you in a moment. Alright folks, it is time to start laying some power lines. Now I know I said earlier we were going to try to use one switch to control everything. Now unfortunately though, with this type of clock, that's not really possible because we're going to want our power lines here to be on a bit of a different timing. However, nice and simple to fix, just means we have to use a second switch. So in order to install the switch, come to the side of this clock here, move over by 2 blocks. We're going to want a building block here, a building block here. On the face of this block, we're going to want a lever like that. Below it, on this block down here, we need a piece of redstone dust like that. Now, if you want to make sure the switch works, just give the lever a flick. You'll see that the redstone dust comes on. Now, you might be wondering how that's getting powered. It's because of the switch itself. When we flick the switch down, it actually powers this air block, which in turn actually powers this redstone dust. Now that we know it works, go ahead, flick it off. Next step is we're going to use our redstone dust and we're going to run a line until we get parallel with this block right here. So go ahead, put in your redstone dust. Perfect. Once we get parallel to this block, turn toward it. We're going to want a few more pieces. However, going into the block, we're going to need a repeater. So go ahead, put in a repeater. You can leave that on 1 tick. Coming out of the side of the block, we're going to want some more redstone dust, so put a piece there like that. Just like that. Now at this time, you can actually get rid of that switch right there. That's no longer needed. And then next, we're going to run redstone dust right up this way as far as we can. So with this piece being number 1, we need to put in another 14 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Once we get here, go ahead, put in another repeater. Again, you can leave it on 1 tick. Go ahead, bring around our redstone dust. So again, we're going to go till we're parallel with the block, which would be right here. Turn toward the block. we're going to run our redstone dust in, just like that. And if we want, again, we can put in another repeater right here. Coming out of the side of the block, we're going to put a piece of redstone dust like that. And again, we're going to travel another 14 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, giving us 15 in total. Next, put in a repeater, so that way we can keep the signal going. Go back to your redstone dust. Keep laying it out until we're parallel with the next block, just like that. When you get here, turn toward the block. Run in your redstone dust. A repeater going into the block, just like that. Go to the other side, put a piece of redstone dust like this, and again, we're going to travel 14 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, giving us 15 in total. At this point, go ahead, put in another repeater, and then finally, we're going to put in our last bit of redstone dust. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're now parallel with the block, so turn toward it, and just run your dust right into the block. Perfect. And at that point, all our power lines are connected up. So if we go ahead and we flick the lever, we should see the portals start to go off and on. Now we will do that in just a moment. First things first though, we need to take out the extra levers. So that one there, this one here, and this one here. Perfect. Excellent. We're very close, folks. Now, before we turn on the power for the portals to get them all going, because that'll start spawning us some zombie pigmen, we can now take the time to put in our tridents. Now, at this point, you are going to have a choice to make. And the choice is the amount of tridents that you want to use. So, it's up to you. If you really want to get this thing going berserk, you could put in a grand total of 24 tridents, one for each piston, or you could keep it simple and put in 12 tridents. So again, one for one side of the pistons. Oh, notice we were missing some redstone dust here, so replace those two like that. Get those pistons out. That was from earlier when we had to put the repeater in. Sorry about that. Alright, now that we have all our pistons operational, we can go ahead and start putting in the tridents. So the easiest way to do this is kind of walk in, aim at the piston like that, and then just keep going back. Throw in your tridents. Alright, once you get the last trident in, go ahead and replace the glass. Like that. Perfect. And at this point, folks, we are ready to roll. So let's go ahead and let's give the system a test. If I flick this switch, we should see the portals start going around and around. Yes, perfect, exactly like that. And as you can see, we already have zombie pigmen coming in. So now, let's turn on the Trident Killer. And as we can see, it really doesn't take long for the zombie pigmen to fall because of the fall damage we have them taking. So pretty much they fall in, they take one hit from the trident, and they're dead. While they're getting killed, we can simply run back and forth like this to collect all the XP. Perfect, perfect. So now that we know everything works, I'm going to go ahead, I'll turn the portals off. That'll stop the pigmen from coming in. However, we are going to leave the Trident Killer active just for another minute or two to make sure that it kills off the rest of the guys. Just a couple more. There we go. All those guys are done. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead. I'll turn off the Trident Killer. Oh, we noticed that we have a little baby in there. Now, the Trident Killer should be able to get those. Listen to all the experience. Listen to that, guys. Listen to that. Wow. Oh, and it looks like we missed a pigman, so we'll go ahead. We'll turn the Trident Killer back on just for a sec. Okay, there goes the baby, there goes the other guy. Perfect, perfect. All right. Well, now that we've given it a test and we know everything works, I guess it's time for a rate test. Perfect. So in between scenes, I actually did take some time to go in under here and set up some additional hoppers and a chest, just for the purposes of the rate test. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back up, I'm going to replace all the flint and steels to make sure they're fresh, I'm going to remove any drops that are already in the chest down below, and then I'm going to run this farm for 1 flint and steel in every dispenser. Once all the flint and steels run out, we'll shut it off, and we'll see what we got for drops. Woohoo! Alright, so I'm going to have a bit of fun. I'll see you guys in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. The rate test is complete. Let's see what we got. As a reminder, for this test, we had 1 flint and steel in each dispenser, giving us a total of 4. And from that, we were able to get 1 full stack of gold nuggets, plus an additional 48. This stack of 48 actually represents all the gold swords that we got, so if you were to smelt those down, you would get these nuggets. We also got 2 gold ingots, and just over a stack of rotten flesh. Now, if we were to have 9 flint and steels in each dispenser, the haul would look more like this. As you can see, we have roughly 16 stacks of gold nuggets, just about 12 stacks of rotten flesh, and 18 gold ingots. Not bad at all. Now, if you had a piglin trader set up in the nether, this is the perfect farm to get the gold that you need to fuel that setup. Alright, and as always, if anyone's going to be building this in their world and you need any help, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments below. I am more than willing to help anyone that is willing to give my tutorials a try. But on that note, once again, my name is Light, and thanks for stopping by. Bye!